In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. In my last video, I was talking about Saint Sophronius, who had numbered as the 59th Bishop of Jerusalem. Today I'll continue the video with Anastasius II, also known as Anastasius Beta. And this listing is going to be a little bit different. I know that in the Patriarchate of Jerusalem, Anastasius is listed as number 59. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'll just call him as the bishop who succeeded Sophronius. So I'll start by reading this Orthodox wiki. Anastasius II of Jerusalem was patriarch of the Church of Jerusalem from an unknown date until the year 706, as the throne of Jerusalem came under control of the Muslim conquerors and church life was disrupted by the Monothelite controversy. Monothelite here means single will or one volition. The records for the Patriarchate of Jerusalem after the reign of Patriarch Sophronius are sparse and tempered by Muslim interventions. After the death of Patriarch Sophronius in the year 638, Bishop Stephen of Dora was patriarchal vicar, assisted by John of Philadelphia in the place of Amman. So where are these places? Why are these two individuals of Dora and Amman being mentioned? So I'll show you a map for Stephen of Dora. You can see here on this map the southwest of Jerusalem with the red dot, that's Dora. And then for the other one, Amman, or Philadelphia at some point, is here northeast of Jerusalem. And so these two places are important because they're still part of the Diocese of Jerusalem. So the bishops here are not part of the Diocese of Alexandria, or the Diocese of Antioch, or the Diocese of Rome, or Constantinople. So it's important to remember that as we consider the bishop who succeeded Saint Sophronius. During this same time period, the Muslims attempted to install a different bishop, here called a monoenergist, mono meaning single, and energy meaning work or operation, so a single operation. But the Orthodox clergy, including Stephen of Dora, would not recognize this Sergius of Jaffa. And Jaffa is also located within the same diocese. You can see here the red balloon to the west of Jerusalem by the magnifying glass. And why is this important? Why are we considering these three, Sergius of Jaffa, Stephen of Dora, and John of Amman? It's because after the reign of Patriarch Sophronius, we don't have a very clear list of the succeeding bishops, and that's why this year appears as a XX or a question mark. To strengthen the position of the Orthodox, Stephen of Dora traveled to Pope Martin in Rome, in Italy, who on Stephen's recommendation assigned Bishop John of Philadelphia as a patriarchal vicar of the Church of Jerusalem. Pope Martin also sent letters that announced his decision and asked that John be recognized. From this time on, there are no records about the Patriarchate until the year 705. During this period, it is only known that Anastasius II had signed the decisions, probably as a substitute or representative of the Patriarch of Jerusalem, on the year 692 of the Fifth Sixth Council, which is called the Quinisext Council, in the city of Constantinople, during which the decision was made that the Jerusalem Patriarchate occupied fifth position in the ranks of the Pentarchy. So that's the brief overview of Anastasius II. Other similar or corresponding figures I want to show you who were alive or contemporary within this 50-year period. So I'm highlighting here in blue Anastasius II. I put a guess or an estimate on the year 681 when he became an official clergy representing Jerusalem. But before that, from the year 639 to 680, there is no record or no list, and so the throne was vacant and the see was unoccupied. But for Saint Sophronius, who passed away either in the year 638 or 644, had sent this Stephen of Dora. So he's the one who gave him the order to go and seek an ordination of a new bishop to succeed him. So the Stephen of Dora I'll get into later in the video, but I just want to point out the contemporaries. So in this time period of the 7th century, what's going on? So in Antioch, you have vacancy also. Uh, from this after Anastasius I, from the year 571 to 638, it's vacant. Then you have about a 10-year period with Gregory in Antioch, Syria, and then after him Anastasius again for about 5 years, and then he's succeeded by another person, same name, Anastasius II, and then it's vacant for 28 years. And in this time period is when the Muslims or the Arabs began their invasion of the West, and so Syria had been experiencing destruction. First, because of the Persians or the Byzantine Sasanian War, and then later because of the Arab invaders. So there was a sustained period of time where there was no patriarchate representative in the city of Antioch. Later, there will be others like Gregory II, Anastasius III, Macedonius, George, and so on. But the context for these is that with the new rulers and the new invaders, they were setting up false bishops that are called monothelites, or either Christian heretics who were promoting a new doctrine that identified a single will or a single uh, energy or operation in Jesus Christ. And so these were considered unorthodox, and that's part of the reason why, in the time period of Sophronius, as he was getting old and ready to um, arrange for a new successor, an Orthodox successor to take the seat, he couldn't reach out to Antioch, and for the same reason, Constantinople and Alexandria. So here in Constantinople, here are the names of the patriarchs. I put here's four of them: Sergius, Pyrrhus, Paul II, and Peter. These were all declared heretic by the time of the Sixth Ecumenical Council. Uh, but that rules them out. It shows why Jerusalem could not go to Antioch, Constantinople, or even Alexandria, because part of it is the Byzantine Sasanian War destroying Christians. The other one is the uh, Arab invasion, which also is destroying Christians, and so the representation of official clergy is diminished. And whenever clergy are installed, they're being persuaded or infiltrated by this new religion, which is considered a Christian heresy, according to St. John of Damascus, um, where they believe in one God, one nature, one will, one energy, all focusing on a singular aspect of God and not recognizing the Orthodox perspective and definition of the two natures of Christ, and therefore the two energies, the two wills of the Lord Jesus Christ. So I'm just pointing out here that there's vacancy here in Alexandria for about 80 years after the year 651. So the inheritor, or that's the context for Anastasius II. He's living in a time when the Persians and the Muslims, or the Zoroastrians and the followers of Muhammad, were getting rid of Christians and putting in new leaders who would be more subjugated or susceptible to the ideas of Islam or the concept of a monotheism. So that's the context of Anastasius II. I'll finish there and then move on to the second topic. The second topic is corresponding to describe why is this Anastasius II being considered Orthodox, whereas Sergius, who was being promoted by the Muslims, the monothelite bishop Sergius of Jaffa, why is he a problem? So I'll first distinguish the two different kinds of non-Orthodox. So there is the Miaphysite Christological definition, and there is the Monophysite Christological definition. So these two are not the same. Mia, MIA, stands for a united nature, whereas mono stands for a singular nature. So even though in English they can both be called one nature, each of them mean different things when they say one. So here's a quick summary. While often historically labeled Monophysite, the Syriac and the Coptic were labeled Monophysite by opponents. They reject this term because it implies Christ's human nature was absorbed by his divine nature. So here's the problem, that it was absorbed. Instead, they believe Christ has one united, meaning a composite or a combination of divine human nature. In that sense, it's a one, or it's a united. It's a Miaphysis. So key distinctions: monophysitism, or singular nature, believes Christ has only one nature. So this is very similar to the Muslim belief or the rabbinic Judaism belief that God has only one nature. Although in this case, for Christian heretics, it means that the humanity was absorbed or overcome, overwhelmed, taken over by the divine nature. Whereas Miaphysitism believes Christ is fully divine and fully human, uh, but united into one nature. So here the language sounds similar to a Diophysite, in the sense that it says fully divine and fully human. But where it becomes distinguished is that someone like Sophronius or someone like Anastasius II, and therefore people like them, like Stephen of Dura and John of Philadelphia, as well as Saint Martin, Pope of Rome, and other Orthodox bishops, would say uh, two natures without confusion. So the reason that this stands out is because in the time of the invasion is when the Syriac Orthodox become a concept of having a church or a structure, a specific place where their monks can come and perform services. So here's from this Wikipedia page called the Patriarchal Vicariate of Jerusalem and Jordan. So uh, I'll read here the history. The first Syriac Orthodox Church in Jerusalem was probably built between the Sasanian conquest in the year 614 and the Islamic conquest in the year 637. So basically during the lifetime of Sophronius. And then 400 years later, the Syriac Bishop Michael the Syrian implies that the church torn down, the Syriac meaning this specific parish or cathedral, uh, it has to do with them as a community. And then it would be rebuilt later by an Egyptian or a Coptic Christian of the name Macarius. But what I want to highlight in discussing Anastasius is that these were monks. These Syriac Christians who were Miaphysite and not Diaphysite were making their own communities and were not in communion with the Orthodox. So moving on, I also want to point out that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where the Patriarch of Jerusalem, like Sophronius or Anastasius II, would preside and sit, is this one, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But it was destroyed twice, once in the year 614 during the Byzantine-Sasanian War, and then again a second time uh, by a caliph, Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim, who was known as the Mad Caliph or the Nero of Egypt in the year 1027 to 1028. So to bring it all back together, why is it important to know how did this Patriarch of Jerusalem, Anastasius II, influence Christianity and the outcome of the Orthodox understanding? Well, in this case, his success was being faithful. He continued to hold a position that is orthodox or two natures of Christ, even though Antioch, Alexandria, and Constantinople were taken over either by Muslims or by Monothelites or by Monophysites and by Miaphysites as well. That's why one of the reasons Sophronius sent Stephen of Dura to Italy was to speak with another Orthodox bishop, which is Pope Martin, because in apostolic tradition, you cannot just ordain bishops at will. You need to have at least two or three canonical bishops to perform the ordination and therefore make the service and the succession valid. So that's why he couldn't go to north to Antioch or south to Alexandria or even towards Constantinople. He specifically had to go to Rome because of among the Pentarchy, that was the last one besides Jerusalem that was still retaining Orthodox understanding of Christ and a representation of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. But among the names, I want to also list other significant leaders or people who were influencing Christianity. So in other lands, we have John Moskos, who wrote the book The Spiritual Medal in the year 622, St. Barsanuphius the Great. There are two with this name, so I'm referring to the Orthodox Christian, not the Miaphysite, who wrote the book Guidance Towards Spiritual Life, Answers to the Questions of Disciples. Among those who were not Miaphysite and not Orthodox, but still somehow held the Miaphysite definition, is what's called the Church of the East. So among their leaderships and bishops, they had Dadisho, Alypus the Stylite, and Rabban Mar Ormis of Persia. And in the same time period, uh, in Ethiopia, that's when the rock churches, or churches hewn from the rock, um, you can Google Adigrat sandstone. That's when these events were happening. So the church is basically growing, but there's a division between those who are promoting the two natures of Christ and those who are not. Um, and then other places going to Rome. So after Honorius, who was declared a heretic later in a council, he was succeeded by Severinus and John IV and Theodore I. And then that led to Martin, who was martyred in 655. Other contemporaries include Augustine of Canterbury, these other English and Celtic saints. And this will all happen after the Byzantine Empire had grown and expanded to reclaim territories that were fallen and lost in the West. So that would later lead to other political struggles between Eastern Christians and Western Christians. But for the purpose of this video, I wanted to highlight that the Monothelites and the Monoenergists, those who promoted one Christ with a single nature, a single will, a single energy, were trying to take control of Jerusalem. So, in defense of that, people were supporting, people like Stephen of Dura and John of Philadelphia were supporting installment of Orthodox bishops. It seems like between the year 639 and 680, it was not successful. Um, but you will see later by the Sixth Ecumenical Council that you would have this one, the Anastasius II. So that's the backdrop of his story. That's the situation that he was elected in, and it seems, according to my guess, that from 681 to 706, it's about 25 years. So for about 25 years, he held a clerical office, or at least made decisions on behalf of Jerusalem that promoted the welfare of Orthodox Christians. I'll finish by reading off this other article by Orthodox Christian Theology regarding Pope Martin, Stephen of Dura, and papal jurisdiction. I thought it was interesting. It no longer talks too much about Anastasius II, but it gives you more understanding of the history of what's going on in the 7th century. Vacant bishoprics, as well as bishops in exile for prolonged periods of time, were, as a result of the Islamic invasion and the Caliphate political powers, an issue for Alexandria and Antioch. This development, in effect, largely subjugated the patriarchates when they were once fiercely independent. Constantinople, with its Nicene exile, and Rome, with its Avignon papacy, would prove not immune to this innovative historical development. Before this time, bishops tended to be people who lived locally, were elected by locals, and were ordained by locals. In a real sense, the bishopric would lose its distinctly local character and would in effect evolve to become a bureaucratic appointment of a centralized church apparatus, both in the East and the West, and for different reasons. In closing, it should not surprise us that in the 7th century, Stephen of Dora's mission to ordain new bishops, which was mainly tasked to John of Philadelphia from Jordan, and met with no success. The only earlier historical precedent is the Meletian Schism. Locals in the 4th century did not receive widely Paulinus, probably due to his foreign backing. His Antioch patriarchate was relegated to a single church building. Blessed Jerome, duty-bound by his jurisdiction to Rome, to reject Meletius, as well as the Apollinarian schismatic Vitalis of Antioch, appeared unimpressed with the papally recognized Paulinus when he wrote from the city, I know nothing of Vitalis, I reject Meletius, I have nothing to do with Paulinus. He that gathers not with you, the Pope of Rome, scatters. Letter 15, paragraph 2. Here's a comment by this author. There's a strange papal proof text, as Jerome was in effect rejecting the Pope's recognized bishop. His flowery language served the purpose of conveying genuine loyalty amidst being in some measure disloyal, as he clearly recognized that the West's selection of bishop in Antioch was incorrect. Locals must have been equally unimpressed with Stephen of Dora's foreign machinations. Not surprisingly, the single will, or monothelitism, perceived as the local faith in response to foreign encroachments, persisted for centuries in this region, in Syria and Palestine. When the proceeding is taken into account, one realizes that Pope Martin of Rome was not exercising universal jurisdiction. He was recognizing the somewhat legitimate claims to the patriarchate by Stephen of Dora, presuming tradition is correct, and he was actually sent by the Patriarch of Jerusalem, Sophronius. Stephen alleged he was countering bishops with illegitimate ordinations, and that's what I think I was trying to point to with the Syriac that were established in the 7th century, according to this website. And he was rightfully the caretaker, or the locum tenens, of the Jerusalem Patriarchate. Hence, the context of Stephen's actions is not Rome exercising supremacy over a foreign church territory, but Rome recognizing the claims of someone to be acting patriarch of said territory. This was an anecdote intended to deal with a canonical crisis. Canonical means according to church law, or following the right way in the church operations, of there allegedly being no local council validly ordaining new bishops in the middle of Muslim persecution. See Martin to John of Philadelphia, Conflict and Negotiation in the Early Church, page 211. In any event, Stephen and his accomplice, John of Philadelphia, or Amman in Jordan, had their line of bishops rejected by local opposition, caliphate policy, and lack of Constantinopolitan recognition. When the matter was ultimately settled, the fully recognized Bishop of Jerusalem, Anastasius II, was a titular bishop in Constantinople. That means he wasn't actually sitting in Jerusalem or presiding in the throne of Jerusalem. It was unclear whose line of bishops he hailed from, though chances are he was simply elected in Constantinople and rubber stamped by local Byzantine sympathizers in Jerusalem itself. And so Stephen of Dora's understandable attempt to revise Sophronius Christology, which is a Miaphysite or a two-nature Christology, had failed in the short term, as did his ecclesiastical machinations. Perhaps this was providential, as success might have created an additional Orthodox bishopric in Palestine, thereby creating a problematic parallel jurisdiction. It is also likely if Stephen's plans had succeeded, the parallel Jerusalem Patriarchate could have been subservient to another local church, Rome, for its legitimacy, as Constantinople would have not recognized it. And this is kind of what the problem that happened in Antioch, and then later during the Crusades. In effect, it would have created a problem which caused a schism during the Crusades between the 11th and 14th centuries. So I'll stop the video there. Next time I'll try to present on the next bishops. The list continues to go on, so I'll just kind of try to sometimes read if they have any writings, or if they have a summary, just follow the summary, but then also give you a context of the contemporary Christians, whether they were leaders that were considered Orthodox or heretical. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe, or at least like the video. Maybe leave a comment behind if you think something was missed or could be improved. I appreciate any feedback. Thank you.